Hello and welcome to my very first Age of Wonders 4 video. My name is Senor Tequila. I have roughly 1500 hours played in the game, as well as a lot of learning done from Age of Wonders 4 content creators. My experience in the game is mostly single player focused, even though I had some multiplayer experience recently. So this build and other builds, possibly in the future, will be suited for brutal difficulty AI with normal world threat and mostly auto-resolved battles. Also no hero resurgence for auto-resolves on, since those are very common settings in multiplayer rounds as well. You could try this build in multiplayer, but there the pacing is a little bit harder, so maybe first try it in single player. Okay. Crafting builds is one of the favorite parts of the game for me, and making weaker aspects of the game work is a lot of fun as well, if it works. Unfortunately for some, the Reaver culture is one of those weaker aspects. Some consider them one of the worst, if not the worst, culture in the game right now, especially since the previous title holder, the feudal culture, got buffed in the recent update. So now maybe Dark is another contender for that title. That remains to be seen. Keep in mind that Age of Wonders 4 is very much a game of opportunity costs. So most of the time, if you hear that something is quote-unquote bad or the worst, it's not that it's unplayable. Most of the time, it's not. But simply put that other things you could do are stronger or easier to execute. So the bad tag gets thrown onto the Reavers, especially by comparison to other cultures. But let's see if we can make them work. Before we craft and especially play our build, we have to understand the identity of the Reaver culture. So let's have a look at it. The first thing you will see is this higher production and mana income. This is not as important, it's just a hint for some city structure buildings later on. The first very big thing for the Reavers is this focused aggression line. Later on you will get a unit enchantment for all unit types except mythic units. So you can put this on every unit, every non-Reaver unit you will get throughout the game, which will be a lot. So, focused aggression says that ranged and magic attacks deal 10% damage per stack of marked on the target. This is really nice because it stacks with every other damage enhancer in the game. So if your unit is 5 strengthened, you can also have 5 marked on the same target and get essentially 100% more damage. And to get marked on your targets, of course there are some spells you could utilize, but in general the most common occurrence will be that all your melee attacks will have a 60% chance of inflicting marked on targets, as usually this will be increased for single shot attacks. So the 60% chance will become a 90% chance. The second big thing about the Reavers, and maybe the most, maybe the hardest to understand, is the war spoil mechanic. This -1 Whispering Stone is basically just for flavor, and even if you had your normal 1 Whispering Stone, you wouldn't put it into a free city. You would just plop it down in your capital, run with the city stability. Maybe this could be a balance change for the Reavers, but it's not really needed. This is mostly a flavor thing, and the Total War ability in its name and what it does is a hint from the developers as well as a little helper on what type of game you want to be playing. So this Total War ability allows you to declare war without war justification. This is especially important, or only important, if you declare war on empires, since free cities will just give you some evil alignment, which we don't really care about. But being able to declare war anytime you want on other players is a really nice thing. Which brings us to the biggest part of the Reaver culture we have to discuss, the war spoil mechanic. War spoils, as you can read here, are a unique resource that only the Reavers can utilize. You will see it together with your gold and your mana in the game. And there are ways to gain war spoils and ways to use war spoils. And it's quite important to understand them. Gaining war spoils will be done by killing units of free cities and other empires. You will not gain war spoils for killing animal and other wildlife units on the map, just clearing nodes. However, you can spend war spoils this way. So first you kill units of other empires and free cities. You will get war spoils based on the unit tiers killed. And it is also important to keep in mind that you will gain war spoils by migrating cities into your own empire or burning cities down. So essentially, burning cities down now gives you, apart from the big chunk of gold you're used to, a big chunk of war spoils as well. And this gives you a hint how you want to use your war spoils. War spoils can be used in 3 different ways, which I would recommend only to use 2 of them. The first and major way, which you will use most of the time to spend your war spoils, is capturing units after combat. Your support unit, the Overseer, we will have a look at him soon. He can subdue enemies in battle, and you can then capture them and recruit them to your army permanently to fight on your side. This is really nice because it allows you to essentially spend war spoils to substitute for gold and draft in the early and mid game, and you will get the units captured directly at the front lines. So this really helps you to keep the ball rolling, so to speak. The second way to spend your war spoils, which is really important in the mid to late game, is recruiting your Magelock Cannon unit. You can see it here in the background. This unit can be recruited once your Town Hall reaches tier 3 and will cost only war spoils. This can be an upside because you do not have to pay gold for it to recruit it, but it can also be a downside if you don't plan ahead, if you don't have enough war spoils to use it. The third way to use your war spoils, which I would recommend against using, is intimidating free cities. You can use your war spoils instead of deploying a Whispering Stone later on in the game into a free city. You can deploy your war spoils to intimidate a free city into the next level of allegiance. However, this process will take you a lot of war spoils, and the reward for intimidating the free city isn't big enough. You don't want to play with this mechanic. Being friendly with free cities is not a thing the Reavers do well. And if you want to have a diplomatic approach and a friendly approach to free cities, this culture really isn't the right way to do it. So please don't use your war spoils on intimidating free cities. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of resources, and you will lose steam in the mid game and eventually the game. Okay. So now we understood our main damage amplifier, the focused aggression, and the war spoil mechanic. Let's have a look at the unit roster, which is important to understand. I will give you a few explanations and a few tips for this culture units. Let's have a look at them. We go to the Reaver culture, and there you can see a list of all their units. I will, for this for this video, start with the Observer unit. This is a really good scouting unit. It is better at scouting as a lot of other racial scouts, maybe all of them. But it has the drawback that it is really useless in fights. Just don't bring this unit into your early game fights. It will die often. And then you will be down one scout, which you have to then replenish with 50 gold. And it won't help you at all. It won't tank for you, and the one mark you can apply, it really doesn't matter that much. Just don't bring this unit to fights. In return, you get a flying scout unit. This is really, really nice. Especially since the latest expansion, there are a lot of free mana pickups on lava. A lot of units cannot walk over lava. This unit, however, it can walk over lava, so it gets the ability to pick up those juicy 3 stacks that other cultures may not have access to, as well as being able to build roads over lava when you have the road building ability. So keep in mind, if there's some terrain you cannot cross as easily, this Observer unit can build roads over lava. This brings us to the first damage dealing tier 1 unit, if you wish to call him that, of the Reaver culture, the Harrier. This is a tier 1 skirmisher unit, and unfortunately it is so weak that you should immediately forget that this unit exists. You will start with one of these in your first army, but that's it for the whole game. I would recommend not recruiting any of those units throughout the whole game. They die way too fast, and yeah, it's generally not worth recruiting them. If you find yourself recruiting this unit, maybe tweak your early game a little bit. But no harm, no foul. The Reavers get a second tier 1 unit, which is really amazing. The Mercenary is a special kind of tier 1 unit with extra high maintenance, as you can see here, an increased gold upkeep. But in return for that, he gets increased stats for a tier 1 unit. So a lot of people call him like a 1.5, tier 1.5 unit. This makes him really, really strong in the early game, and the Mercenary certainly is a unit you can recruit in the early game. However good his early game is, I would recommend against spamming this unit. A lot of people, they have trouble in the mid game, trouble with completing the unit roster and their armies, and find themselves spamming this unit. This will not be losing you the game immediately, but spamming this unit in the mid game generally means that you did not play to your full strength, and therefore means you will be slower than other players, other cultures, and eventually fall off. So don't spam this unit. I usually do recruit like 5 to 10 of them in my starting city, depending on how I can keep them alive. 5 would be preferably. Roundabout, don't count it out. And if you can get them to legendary rank and keep them in your mid-game armies, they will do a perfectly fine job, but eventually they will fall off, and you need to have a plan in hand to not rely on them till round 40, 50. That will be too late. Okay. This brings us to the most important unit, I would say, for this video. The Overseer unit. This is the really, really strong racial support unit of the Reavers and the centerpiece of the army, and as well as the playstyle of the Reavers. Because this culture is considered quite weak by the developers and the community, and the devs gave it a lot of buffs over the time to make this culture more viable, and I believe those buffs really, really helped the Overseer and the Reavers, and you can really utilize it. First of all, the Overseer has a little bit more HP than most other culture support units. Most other units, tier 2 support units, have 60 starting HP. 70 is quite nice, especially since he wants to be near the front line during your game. One important tag he has, he is optional cavalry. We will use this one later in our build. His basic attack is the Marking Blast. It's nothing to write home about. This is the least important part about the Overseer, and you will just use it if you're out of all the other actions he will eventually be able to do. Yeah. It can afflict blind, I guess, but that's not the point of this unit. So let's talk maybe about the most important ability of him. This Subdue ability. This Subdue ability reads, on a single point action with 3 range, you have a 90% chance to link with and inflict Subdued. This means you click a unit with this ability if possible, and if you can subdue the unit will essentially stop fighting for the enemy. However, you can still, in manual combat, I believe, damage the subdued unit and kill it. And if you kill the subdued unit, you will not be able to capture it after the combat. So make sure to not kill the unit after you subdued it. In order to subdue a unit, it must be affected by immobilized, frozen, or stunned. So anything that gives you access to those status effects will highly increase the potency of your build, since the whole subdue mechanic is centered around afflicting those status effects. Yeah. Here you can see a subdued unit after combat will be captured, and as you can see here, you will be able to spend war spoils on those captured units. You will not have the ability to spend gold on units subdued by the Overseer. This gold thingy is for other empires and other capture-like mechanics. You maybe encountered a similar mechanic with the support unit Nymph, where you have to pay mana to get the units after combat. It is important to keep in mind the war spoil costs of recruiting the subdued units. Tier 1 units will cost 20 war spoils. Tier 2 units will cost 40 war spoils. And Tier 3 units will cost 80 war spoils. In the first rounds, you will essentially take most subdues you get. But later on, it really pays off to have 80 war spoils at hand to be able to recruit Tier 3 units when they are offered to you. It will be a really nice hit to get a early Tier 3 unit, but you will be really sad if you have 50 or 70 war spoils at this point. So keep that in mind. Other things to keep in mind is usually your strongest way to play this culture is to recruit Tier 1 or Tier 2 evolved units. This essentially means Tier 1, especially you want to go for, there are 3 units that I would consider the best to get. Tier 1, you really want to recruit your Slither Hatchlings, your Lesser Snow Elementals and your Lesser Stone Elementals, since all 3 of them will have really good evolves, which help you in the mid-game. Yeah, I would generally recommend against capturing very weak Tier 1 units. Don't capture every skeleton that is offered to you. They will die quite fast in battle, usually, and then you will have essentially wasted your war spoils. So spending your war spoils on units and then have those units immediately die is not the way you want to go. Yeah, that's basically it. The Overseer has also a nice heal ability, the Patch Up. As you can see here, it heals 45 on a range 1. And this unit enters defense mode after using this ability, which makes it quite tanky and also gives you the ability to use the heal and then give your warding aura with the defense mode to all adjacent units. This is really nice. Another thing that needs to be mentioned is that this subdue ability and this patch up ability are usable in melee. you see here a lot of ranged abilities and attacks have the tag cannot be used within an enemy zone of control, meaning if you are bound in melee. Subdue, however, and Patch Up do both not have this tag, so they can be used in melee, which is really, really nice. Yeah. Next on, we have to talk about the Magelock. Basically, everyone wants to play them. They look really cool. They do a shitload of damage if you make them work. But similar to the Mercenary, in a sense, I would advise against spamming those. If you build a full stack of those, they will get overrun by basically any melee unit, and since they cannot use their Magelock shots in melee and have very, very bad defensive stats, kiting with them isn't really an option, so you have to support them in some way. Get it out of your mind to spam those in the mid game. They are essentially not worth it. You can play them if you like. You don't have to. You can not build them at all. But if you really, really want to play them, you can go with one Magelock per stack in the mid game. So 6 units. One of them can be a Magelock. Any more than that, you will not have the success you wish for. With this build at least. If you want to make them work in another build, that's perfectly fine. But stay with me on this. The next unit is the Dragoon. This unit is a really, really nice and strong skirmisher unit of the Reavers. I will not talk about it too much, since for the playstyle of this build, you don't utilize the Dragoon too much. What needs to be said is that even though it is a really, really strong tier 3 unit, it needs a frontline in the mid game. You're running around with full stacks of these isn't as efficient as you might think. It's not impossible, but supporting them with frontline will be the better choice. Notably, he can use his ranged attack, his harrying shot, every turn. It gets buffed by basically everything because it has all the tags. And it comes with really nice tags attached to it, like the Magelock rifle and later the Magelock Cannon. This unit has piercing, ignoring half the defense of the target, and breaching, ignoring half the resistance. So you will do a lot of damage, and this synergizes, of course, really well with this focused aggression tag. And getting the free distracted on all your harrying shots for essentially 25% more damage is really, really nice as well. But keep in mind, units, especially spear units, all units in defense mode, and spear units will be hard to get out of this defense mode, cannot be flanked. Which brings us nicely to the tier 3 unit we will play with this build the most, which is the very beautiful and very strong Magelock Cannon. This unit has a lot of things going for them, but as most of the other units in this roster, it needs to be supported to reach its full potential. But to understand said full potential, we have to look at all its tags and what it does. First of all, it is really important to notice that this unit is not a racial unit. However, it is Reaver culture, but it does not get your racial transformations. It's a construct unit. But the construct tag is quite nice. And it also counts as an archer unit. Maybe for some of you that's you say, I already knew that. But it's a cannon, so I thought it needs to be said that this is also an archer. It has nice defensive stats but you want to bind your enemies in melee and not let them reach the cannon. The most important thing to understand is basically the fire cannon ability. This is a 3 action point attack, so you will not be able to move in a turn and attack. So positioning on this cannon is really important. If you can position it correctly, you will get a 5 range attack, and you will be able to attack in a 3 hex line. In this line, you will do piercing and breaching damage with the focused aggression. As well as guaranteed canceling defense modes and retaliation attacks. We talked about the defense mode before. Defense mode makes a unit unable to be flanked. And knocking units out of defense mode, guaranteed, not with a chance, is a really, really strong ability. Most notably, if you ever fought golden golems in the late game, they enter defense mode and then have unlimited retaliation attacks. So your melee units are they have quite a bad time against them. But this cannon, for example, can cancel the defense mode of a golden golem, and then it is quite a lot easier to kill it in melee. Also, this fire cannon can be used every turn. There's no cooldown on it. And most importantly, on release, I believe, this 3-hex line had to be fired from the Magelock Cannon itself as a center point. Meaning you had to position it on the battlefield, and when the battle started and the enemy moved around his units, he could find blind spots quite easily, because he looked at the cannon, looked where it could shoot, and it was hard sometimes, and if you wanted to reposition your cannon, you couldn't shoot in the same turn, and so on. I believe this was how they worked first. But now they have the ability to shoot this 3-hex line off-center. If you play around this unit in manual combat, you will find that this off-center shooting of the 3-hex line is really, really nice and helps a lot to make this unit more viable. And I believe this alone makes it, maybe makes it even viable. Before it was really, really hard to use. But now you can get your 3-hex line shot off on 2 or more people quite a lot. So it's really nice. This unit will scale really good into the late game because of the piercing, breaching, and this defense mode cancelling. You can use this basically throughout the game. Okay. Now we talked about the unit roster. Let's talk about let's talk about the build. Oh, one more thing. As I mentioned before, this Magelock Cannon, it costs war spoils to recruit. So you have to generate those war spoils. We already talked about how we do this. Let me just talk a little bit about the playstyle you want to play with this faction and with this build. In general, I like to migrate the first free city I find. So everybody in the game starts with a free city, spawning nearby them. The Reavers get, if I'm not mistaken, always a city of another culture, because a Reaver spawning next to a Reaver would be kind of antithetical to the theme, which doesn't matter a lot. You will find your first city as fast as possible, and then you will kill it and migrate it into your empire. This will not only reward you with the city and the XP, you will also gain war spoils from migrating a city into your race. And this can be utilized later on in the game as well. So usually for my second city, I kill and migrate my free city. Then after that, generally you just burn down any city you conquer. Don't vassalize them. Vassalizing won't give you rewards immediately, and you need your war spoils to build your army, and not use it on intimidating them into higher vassalages. So if you kill cities, burn them down. Free cities or cities from other empires. That's really, really important for your war spoil and gold eco. The third city in my empire I usually found manually, and depending on how big of a map you play on, your fourth and fifth city you can either found yourself or migrate from another race. Especially for my fourth and fifth city, I try to prioritize migrating a free city with a high tier town hall, at least town hall tier 3. And it would be really, really nice to migrate a city that has a town hall tier 4. And usually you will be able to take those fights against those free cities. It's not impossible to conquer them. Don't be afraid. Just don't rush in stupidly, scout them out beforehand, kill a few armies of them before you begin your siege, and don't let them gang up on you. General army compositions I will talk about later in the video, because we did not see all units yet. We will play. So, with this being said, and an already very long video, let me go
What is their origin culture?
to the
What
form
is their
traits.
people's form?
What form you want to play is really up to you. I like to play the humans as some kind of liberating crusaders. But Reavers work with a lot of things. Goblin Reavers are fun. Orc Reavers. The goblins for this build would look nice, I suppose. Let's do them. Let's talk about form traits. Let me just put off the... Yeah. So, first of all, as some sort of economic boost, we want to start with Arctic adaptation. Those adaptations are... Some of them are okay. Underground and Arctic are by far the best. You want to pick Arctic adaptation for this build because it gives you a really nice economy boost in the early game. We will go into Shadow Tomes, and some of their special province improvements highly benefit from being in the area of snow, in the vicinity. So it will be nice for that, as well as some minor other thing. The latest patch made it so that the magic material sort of liquid, meaning Tranquility Pools, Astral Dew, and Archon Bloods, will spawn in the north of the map, where the Arctic will also be. So starting in the Arctic gives you easier access in the early game to your especially Tranquility Pools, but the other two as well. And makes it possible to quite consistently finish your Cosmoflux Elixir collection quite early. So this helps us economically a lot. Then we will some trade to make us more tanky. There you have the choice between hardy and elusive. I generally like elusive quite a lot, but in this build there are not too many units that use it that often. So going with hardy maybe edges out a little bit, but elusive is really nice as well. Definitely play with it maybe in other builds too, because it's really strong. But for now we will go with hardy. Just make our units a little bit more tanky. It's a good usage of your point. And last but very much not least, one of the centerpieces for this build is the Dread Spider Mount. This is really nice and important. It gives us some tankiness, but this can be neglected. You will gain for a lot of your units more mobility on the world map. The mobility aspect definitely is really nice. Keep in mind your Overseer, your support unit, is possible cavalry unit, so your Overseer will get a spider. And most important, all your spider units will have the web ability. Your ruler will start with a spider mount, and your starting overseer will start with a spider mount. And as you can see, this web ability allows you to inflict possibly immobilized in an AoE effect. And this is quite important because getting your ball rolling for subduing and capturing enemy units, and therefore making your army stronger, is highly dependent on the status effects needed for the subdue, which is, as we can recall, subdue, frozen, and stunned. Stunned is really hard to come by in the early game, so we have to make do with frozen and immobilized, and the Dread Spider Mounts give us a very good ability. And 60% of course you can say that's not a lot, but keep in mind this is AoE, it has a chance to proc on a lot of units at once, and since a lot of your units will be mounted, you can use this web ability with a lot of units, and eventually you will get an immobilize on enemies. So yeah, this is really important for our early game. Definitely a centerpiece, and with this build, it's really not replaceable. This early immobilize is really quite a lot. So those are our form traits.
What
We already determined that we will be playing as the Reavers. And that brings us to the society traits. Society traits are, in general, really, really strong. Here I have to talk again about Age of Wonders 4 being a game of opportunity costs. Most of the society traits do something for you, and you can argue, oh, they have a use case, which is true, but you also have to keep in mind that you only get to pick 2 of them. So if you pick 1 out of this list or 2 out of this list, you don't get to pick all the other ones. So you have to choose wisely. In general, you want to pick your society traits to complement your playstyle and give you needed affinities, both of which we will do. The Reavers really need to help economically at home, and as well as fitting affinities for your build. The first trait we will pick is an astral one, the Hermit Kingdom trait. This will give all our cities a really, really nice economic boost, as well as as long as they are not bordering other cities or outposts, which is easy to achieve, as well as giving us grievances onto other empires encroaching on our territory. You want to be at war anyway, but just because you can declare war without justification and with no drawback, that doesn't mean you can't do it. You can't do it with justification and possibly get Imperium income. So this one in general is really, really strong. Those of you who know, this is considered one of the strongest economic or strongest society trait in general in the game, and it comes attached with this juicy blue astral point. This will be our only astral point, but it will go a long way in this build. So it's really, really nice to have this. The additional 100 Imperium, you cannot underestimate this. It's a really, really nice starting bonus, and it enables a lot of plays. You do not want to buy population with this 100 starting Imperium. If you find some production and then maybe shave off a turn by paying 15 Imperium once in the game, okay, maybe, but in general, do not, I repeat, do not buy population with this starting Imperium. There are much better uses for it. If you find your free city fast, you can found or migrate your first city 2 turns earlier into the game. If you don't do that, you can recruit an early hero. So you can use this Imperium to essentially buy rush a hero. It costs 30 Imperium per turn, so this will shave off 3 turns, and you can get started leveling, snowballing your second hero a lot earlier. And the third option I really like to do is getting the first Shadow Affinity research in the Empire tree, the Knowledge Extraction, which gives you 150 knowledge for killing heroes. If you don't find your free city as fast as you like, and maybe kill it a little bit later into the game, like turn 7-8, you will be able to get knowledge extraction before taking those free city fights, and then get a really nice early game knowledge boost for killing the free city which you wanted to do anyway. And you will have the Imperium to do so. So we picked the Hermit Kingdom. And second, as a second society trait, we want another economically focused one. We will go with Great Builders. First of all, we want and need the Materium Affinity. And second of all, this is a really, really nice fit for what we want to do. The +2 gold per quarry in your city domain, this is whatever. I guess 2 gold is better than not having 2 gold, but this is not the point. Really the point of picking this is, 1, the special province improvements cost -50% production. With this build, you will have a lot, really, really a lot of very good province improvements. You will see this later in the Tome section. And we already mentioned that getting your war spoils is done by killing enemy empire units and burning down cities. Burning down cities will give you a huge stack of gold, which you then can translate into economy back at home with this, because you will have the gold for your special province improvements, but usually it takes a lot of time to build them because your economy is not your main focus as the Reavers. And this 50% production, it carries a long way. Also, in addition, your capital will start with a workshop and vendor, and this allows for a very smooth early game. In general, with this workshop and vendor already built, you will want to take as your first province with your first population a forester, and after that a quarry. And with this Forester Quarry combo, you can go immediately into the Library and Arcane Institute combo. However, from my playstyle, for my build, I really like to go with the storehouse, with the food production building first. This will also be boosted by your Forester, just because getting those tiles unlocked earlier, getting to your Town Hall 5 earlier is quite important, and for me I like this to boost my early economy, and I will eventually catch up in knowledge. So your build, I guess, would be Forester into Quarry, and then go Storehouse into Library, into Arcane Institute, and then build your Mana Forge, which is your mana building, your special mana building, and then you go essentially from there. If possible, this will not be possible very often, but if possible, try to get a pasture early on with your Forester. The Forester definitely takes priority, but if you can take with your first Forester or Quarry a pasture, so the cheaps that gives you extra food in your city, go for this one. This early food is quite important. Later on, food isn't as important for this build, for most builds essentially, but this early game 10 food from the storehouse and from maybe your pastures, it will go a long way. Okay, so now we have chosen our society traits,
Choose your first
and as some of you might guess, because we already hinted at it, our starting tome will be a Shadow Affinity tome, and it will be the tome of Cryomancy. This tome is really, really nice. It offers a lot of different things, and eventually we will be able and gladly utilize all of the skills available in this tome, as well as its special province improvement. Generally for the tomes, the Reavers are, as we already talked about, not the strongest culture. So for those of you who know a little bit more about multiplayer and the quote-unquote meta of the game, we will allow ourselves for this build to go with some of the meta tomes and help us out a little bit. But this isn't a problem. So, the build will still be unique enough. And you're playing Reavers. You're making Reavers work. So don't sweat it. Funnily enough, this build will, I think, utilize all 3 tomes released together with the Reavers in the Empire and Ashes expansion. So you could call this an old school or maybe as intended Reaver build. I don't know. Anyway. First, we have to talk about the School of Cryomancy. This is a really nice special province improvement. You really do want the option to plop down a research post if needed for your tier 3 knowledge building in your city, as well as just for your scholar skilled cities, which you will have the most of throughout the game. The ability to just have one more research post, it's really, really nice and helps you to scale up. And you can plop this down immediately after reaching Town Hall 2, and by this point you really will want the mana it provides to you. The mana it provides you is really, really nice, so you will want to build this, especially since with your governor later on you will get extra mana with it. I already talked about that we will be able to utilize all these research skills, but let me talk a little bit about the order you want to research them. You will guaranteed start with the Ice Coffin spell. This is relatively high cost in combat casting points. This is not meant for the damage. This is essentially for the 90% chance of becoming frozen. Especially in the early game with your Arctic start, you will be up against a lot of Arctic units. They even have higher frost resistance. So this is not about the damage. Okay, most of them are immune to frozen, but that's beside the point. Throughout the whole game, this Ice Coffin ability has a 90% chance of freezing a unit. And as we remember from our Overseer, frozen is one of the tags you need to subdue a unit. So just having the mana and leaving this on in auto resolves gives you a lot more recruits than you might think. Then let us talk about the order of researches. You really want your Snow Spirit as your summon unit researched as fast as possible. This one is a skirmisher unit, which is really nice because it utilizes both those unit enchantments, and it also uses your focus aggression because it has melee attacks to apply marked, and it also profits from the marked stacks. So skirmisher units are really, really nice for you to have. We already talked about this a little bit. And yeah, so essentially, if you can get your hands on it in your first research, definitely go with the Lesser Snow Spirit. Just being able to summoning units onto the battlefield will let you keep up with your steam in the early game, and it's really, really nice to have. If you don't, I don't know if it's a guarantee as your first research, but you will get it often, and if you do not have it in your first rotation, you definitely will get it in your second, just by chance, so pick it up as fast as possible. After that, it is a little bit more flexible. You want to keep in mind that you, with this build, we want to play the White Witch unit. So make sure, after the Snow Spirit, to definitely research the White Witch before you reach your Town Hall Tier 2, or at least around the point you reach your first Town Hall Tier 2, because you want to be able to recruit them as you like, so you have to research them. As you can already see here in this picture, which is really nice, this unit will also be sitting on one of your precious spider mounts, which means she will get the XP from it, will get the web ability, and more importantly, she will have this freezing blast ability, and this has also a 90% chance of inflicting frozen. And with the recent changes to battle mages on, I believe it's champion tier, yeah, champion, you will get a 120% chance to inflict frozen. Again, the damage is beside the point. It is quite nice. You will be able to kill things with it, with the frost damage of this freezing blast, but the frozen is definitely the thing why we picked this unit, just to be able to subdue more units with our Overseer. And keep in mind, subduing a unit in combat essentially takes them out of the game. So freezing a unit and then subduing it, maybe 2 actions, but it also essentially kills a unit in combat. And this unit, this freezing blast, sorry for that, this freezing blast is very, very nice as well, because it is a single point action. So if you are bound in melee, you can run away with your White Witch and still use your freezing blast. So this is really nice. After this, I generally prioritize the frost blades. Just keep in mind, if you're still clearing in the Arctic, in your starting terrain, maybe don't cast the frost blades immediately after researching it, because it will trade off physical damage for frost damage, and if you are fighting mostly Arctic creatures, this is a debuff for your army. So if you researched this, don't just blindly cast this, but maybe wait a little bit. After that, eventually, sometime throughout the game, you will want to pick up frost arrows. As you can see, those go on skirmisher units and ranged units. So yes, your Magelock Cannons will get this enchantment as well, which boosts their damage and gives them the chance to afflict slowed. It's really, really nice. And last but not least, the Blizzard. The Blizzard spell is really, really nice. It scales amazingly throughout the whole game. Definitely don't spam it in the early game. If you have to fight maybe a tough silver or gold infestation, you can do it. If you want to conquer a tough free city, stuff like that, then you can definitely use it. And the frost damage, it's really, really nice. But the main point is the -3 status resistance on the for the whole army. You will get easier immobilizes, freezes, and you guessed it, subdues. From that. Okay. Now we talked about our starting tome. I guess it's as good a time as ever to talk about the tomes we want to use in this build. So let's just do that. We started with the Tome of Cryomancy, and next for our Tier 1 tomes, we want to go with the Tome of Alchemy. Again, you have a really, really strong special province improvement in the Alchemist Lab. It recently got, or not recently, but it got nerfed a while back, where it costs more production, which isn't quite as big of a deal for you, since you have your Great Builder's trait, and building those will not take too long. With this one, as well as with the previous one from the Cryomancy tome, the School of Cryomancy, do not try to optimize those too much. By which I mean, do not try to get like 7 adjacent provinces for this one or the School of Cryomancy, if it means delaying the building. If you can get it just by playing the game and because you have a good start or a good city building, it's really nice to have as much as adjacencies as possible. But do not wait 5, 6 or maybe more turns to build this, so you can get 6 adjacencies instead of 5. Build it as fast as possible. Again, a game of opportunity costs. And the early game resources you get from it are much more important than waiting 10 turns and then have one more adjacency. By this point, the 3 more knowledge won't be as impactful. Okay. Just a general tip, I guess. The 2 most important researches in this tome we want to have are the Mysterious Tonic, which gives us a free action support on our support units. We will play a lot of Overseers, and they all can use the Distributive Tonic. This is really, really nice. The Overseer already is close to the front line for this range 1, so it's really, really cool. And with this build especially, we will see a neat interaction, so to speak, later on. Which brings us to the second very important and very nice spell of this tome, the Anti-Magic Tincture, which allows you to dispel negative status effects. Note that this is a buff spell. This buff spell tag is important for some interactions, and of course it has Materium and Nature Affinity as a buff spell, so for your bolstering matrices, this is it. Yeah. Then later on, so we prioritize. Generally, I do the Mysterious Tonic very, very first, because at this point in the game, you will already have some Overseers on the battlefield, and getting this Mysterious Tonic online as fast as possible is, I feel, is most important. And then secondly, I go for the Anti-Magic Tincture. You could make a case, maybe if you play against another human in multiplayer, that getting to your Anti-Magic Tincture for some early game shenanigan rush battles is maybe a little bit better, but that doesn't matter as much. Generally go with the Mysterious Tonic. After that, we want to get our Fumigation. This is a really, really nice siege project. Reavers, maybe you didn't know this. Reavers get a 3rd siege project slot from the beginning of the game. They also get a special siege project right from the start of the game, which is really strong. So if you can afford the gold, you can win siege battles you didn't think were possible. And this fumigation also really helps because you can go with the raiding party, your own Magelock cannons, and the fumigation. This fumigation is really slot efficient since it affects all enemy units, and it only costs 40 mana if I'm not mistaken, so you can essentially plop this down with every siege, which is really, really nice. Constructing bigger siege projects sometimes is just too expensive, and I won't bother paying 200 gold if it's not as hard of a battle. But this one, you can plop down basically every siege, and you will get a lot of benefits from it. And the last research which you possibly can get from this is the material refinery. You don't have to rush it, but later on in the game, especially if you conquer a lot of, if you migrate free cities, you will have 1 or 2 magic materials in the city, and then in the mid game it can be efficient to build the material refinery if you build all your other infrastructure. So pick this up if you want to pick this up later on in the game, just because it's a cheap research and it gets you to your next tome faster. This is definitely a good choice. You got it in an early tome, and it isn't completely useless. So this can be nice, just don't rush it. Rushing this will not pay off. Yeah. And the other ones, the Afflictor and the Afflicting Miasma, you can essentially just skip. If you really want to play with the Afflicting Miasma, I guess you can do it. But this one, if I'm not mistaken, gives the damaging debuff types, and those don't really synergize well with your game plan of subduing units. So you don't really want to do this one. You want to cast spells that freeze or mobilize. So Afflicting Miasma with this build, I wouldn't research it, and as well the Afflictor, you won't play this unit. As our tier 2 tomes, we will first go with the Tome of Construct. There it is. The Tome of Construct gives us, you notice a theme, a really, really nice special province improvement. Plop this down immediately. Don't sweat the adjacencies too much. Just look for a lot of adjacencies. But the types are not that important. Just plop it down and get it rolling. It's really cost efficient, even just for the 10 production, and everything else you can get out of it is just a bonus. Maybe with a small caveat of your starting city. I did not talk about it, but now is a good time, I guess. As the Reavers, you get your own special province improvement, the Reaver Manufacturer. And for this one, especially in your starting city, I would keep in mind that you have this and want to have a lot of this draft adjacencies. So definitely this one, plan ahead and save a sweet spot among those special province improvements for this Manufactorum, so you can keep up with your draft in the early and mid game. Yeah. So don't use your sweet Reaver Manufactorum spot for your Worker Construct Nexus. But that shouldn't be a problem, since you will most likely already have built your Reaver Manufactorum when unlocking this tome. Important researches. The most important research, I would say, right away when unlocking this tome is the compounding defense. You will, via your subdue, have a lot of shield and polearm units on the battlefield, and this just boosts your army immediately. You research this, you cast it, and your entire army is already in fight, in fight mode, and clearing the map will get those defensive bonuses. So generally, compounding defense will be the first research I do with this tome. After that, you really want at least one of those command spells. I generally like the command defend a little bit more, but it really depends on your playstyle. Both are really, really good, and eventually you can just pick up both and choose accordingly. Both of them have the buff spell tag, as well as being Materium and Order. So keep that in mind for your bolstering matrices. However, if you want to play really, really aggressively, you You will eventually play Command Reposition for your Strengthened and your Order Bolstering Matrix for giving every unit hit by this higher critical chance. But that will be later in the game. Then, of course, you have to, at some point, research your Linked Mind race transformation. You won't play in the mid-game too many of your racial units, but keep in mind your heroes also are racial units. You will want to recruit a lot of Reaver heroes if possible. Do not, yeah. And then you can hit them with Linked Minds, and it's really, really nice. If you have a really, really strong unit from of another race, it is not impossible in the late game to get the 250 mana and the casting points to get your very strong warrior unit of another warrior hero of another race to also be Linked Minds. In the late game, it's definitely possible. Yeah. Which brings us to the Bronze Golem. This can be a really, really nice frontline unit. I essentially in this build would use it just to put it in defense mode in front of your Magelock Cannons. And it's definitely nice to have this option. But if your game plan goes well, you won't really need to build the Bronze Golem. You need to have a Town Hall tier 3, and as soon as you get your Town Hall tier 3, you want to start recruiting your Magelock Cannons. So essentially your frontline, if your game goes according to plan and your armies don't wipe by some mysterious affliction, you should have a lot of shield and other units you can put in the frontline just from your subdues from the early game. Whatever is fine, they will die eventually, they will sometimes live and get legend rank, okay? Just make do with your frontline units from your subdues, and your damage core you want to plan around, and this will be your Magelock Cannon. But if a lot of your units die because of early wars, stuff like that, definitely the Bronze Golem is a really nice pickup. It also has the Construct tech, which really goes well with the rest of our build. So you can use it, but in a normal game of this build, I usually don't even research the Bronze Golem or use it as a late game stepping stone for other techs and other tomes. Speaking of stepping stones, our next tier 2 tome will be the Tome of Shadows, and we will pick this tome simply for the 2 affinity points. We really want, at this point, the 3rd point of Shadow Affinity, as well as this 1 point in Materium Affinity. Don't worry, I will show the final build in the end, and you will see that those are important to pick our later tomes and be on point with our affinities for the build. Essentially, to make it short, with this time of a video, we are already an hour in, talking about keeping it short. You can essentially skip all of those and pick up Living Shadow along the way for your heroes and maybe some other racial units. You won't need the rest. The Shadow Blades, your racial units you will want to use already have this and wouldn't be able to be buffed anyway. Maybe your Dragoon, but on his important ability, the pistol shot, he already has this on all his pistol shots, so they are not as important. And yeah, the other ones, you don't want to build the Shade. You'd rather build Magelock Cannons and Bronze Golems before you build a Shade and Magelock Cannons. The spell you don't really want to use, get the Living Shadows eventually, but this is just for affinities, and then just research some cheap researches to get to your next tome as fast as possible. Yeah, this will be quite important because as our next tome we will pick the Cold Dark. We will pick the Tome of Cold Dark as our first tier 3 tome because it will boost our research and economy, and we want to have this earlier into the game, as well as the power it can give you immediately on the battlefield. Our other tier 3 tome will also be quite nice for fighting eventually, but the Cold Dark overall is really preferable, especially because of this Frost Spire. This can really rocket up your mid-game research, and getting those online as fast as possible is really important. So don't pick this as your second tier 3, pick it as your first tier 3 unit. If the game goes according to plan and well, and you are winning all your fights and all your battles, you will want to research the Marching Winter terraforming spell for your cities. And this will help your cities keep up with production and development into the late game. So definitely pick this spell up first if you are not desperately in need of some edge in an important fight. If you are in a battle to the death, so to speak, with another player, another empire, and can't afford to go for economic upgrades right now, your first research should be the Flash Freeze, which is a super buff version of the Blizzard we talked about. And essentially this is one of the strongest spells in the whole game. It is really busted. You can even stack it if you have enough casting points and want to, but this will, in a whole province, so one piece of land on the world map, do 20 frost damage to all units, enemy units in this province, and debuff them with -5 status resistance. This is really important for your immobilizes, freezes, subdues, and other negative status effects you want to apply to your enemy. And if you ever find yourself playing against this in multiplayer, I don't know if the AI uses this as frequently, but if you ever find yourself playing against this in multiplayer, keep in mind that it is only in one province. So if you advance your armies or start a siege battle, you can just, in quote-unquote just, position your armies in different provinces. So where 3 provinces meet, you will have 1 stack in each province. So this can't hit all your armies at the same time. It will be still strong if cast on one of your strong armies, but at least not all 3 stacks will suffer the debuff at once. Veil of Darkness, leave it be. You don't need to research this. Frostling Transformation you can eventually research. It's not that important, but just research it later on. It's quite nice on your heroes. Don't get frozen yourself. Frost damage is quite... you will encounter frost damage quite often, so it's really nice to keep your heroes alive. But it's definitely not a priority at this point in the game. And your Summon Snow Spirit, however, is really good to reinforce your front line immediately. So those 3 spells, definitely research them. At this point in the game, you will have a lot of, most likely you will have a lot of elementals, and you don't want to cast this too much because your mana intake, your mana upkeep will not be able to handle it. But 1, 2, 3 of them just to reinforce a stack, keep yourself clearing on the map is quite nice. Which brings us to our second tier 3 tome, which will be the Tome of the Dreadnought. Very nice tome, very essential for our kit, and I, to be honest, I really underestimated the skills, especially one of them it gives to your army before playing around with it a little bit more. I'm sure a lot of you already know about the War Foundry. This is the second special province improvement in this build where you really want to play and plan around the positioning in your cities, since this also can generate tons of draft for you, which you will need in the late game. So maybe keep in mind that you will want to place this War Foundry in your capital and other cities. And it is very important to keep in mind these +2 ranks to recruitment of construct units. In the mid-game, at the very least, your very strong damage unit, the Magelock Cannon, is a construct unit. So, plop this War Foundry down as fast as possible to recruit your following Magelock Cannons with +2 ranks. There's nothing not to like about this. If you have to rely on bronze golems for your front line, They as well will start the game after recruitment tankier because they have +2 ranks. And to have a little bit of a view into the future, in the late game you will play with the Golden Golem. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. The Golden Golem as well is a construct unit and will be recruited with +2 ranks. So this is good throughout the game. Also, you get eventually the Ironclad. Definitely don't rush it, but you can utilize it. It's quite powerful in your late game armies. And it's also a construct, as you might already guessed. The most important research from this tome to get immediately, and the one I underestimated or didn't really know how to utilize when I first thought and theorized about this tome, is the tuning kits enchantment. There are a lot of other nice things you will get eventually, but those tuning kits really are the centerpiece of what you want to get from this. They get the overcharge ability to your support units, and support units, you have your overseer. This overcharge is a free unit, a free usage free action, and you overcharge a construct unit and heal it for the hit points. Heal is obviously nice. The overcharge, however, is really bonkers. And we have to look at what the overcharge does, and then maybe we have to look at it again so we can believe what it does. This overcharge will give a construct unit +50 damage on attacks. +50 damage. Your Magelock Cannon has a base damage of 30. So essentially, this, if you want to do some really rough math, it close as triples your damage on the Magelock Cannon. It's really ridiculous. The drawback isn't as hard as you might think, because the 50 damage on an AoE attack of your Magelock Cannon, it's just ridiculous. You will kill a lot, surprise a lot of people with it, and excuse my French, fuck shit up with this. This will feel really good when you use it. Let's talk about a little bit of a nice interaction. I already hinted at it earlier. This overcharge is a free action, and you have to stand next to your construct with your overseer. So your overseer will overcharge your Magelock Cannon. Your Magelock Cannon then will attack, and if you're lucky, it will not get stunned. It's a low chance, but some of the time it will stun itself because it did its overcharged attack. Now, if you plan ahead, you can cast your overcharge on a Magelock Cannon that has currently no negative status effects applied to it. Maybe cleanse it before with a spell, or with a ritualist hero, so it has no negative status effects. And then you can overcharge for free with your overseer, attack with your overcharged cannon, and if it stuns itself, you can use your free mysterious tonic also on your overseer to cleanse one of the negative status effects guaranteed, and because you cleansed your unit before, you will be guaranteed to hit the stun. All in the same turn, because this is a free action as well. And after that, you can then with your overseer subdue someone or heal someone else. This drawback of the self stun, you can play around it really nice. So this overcharged ability, it's bonkers. It's ridiculous, and it fires up your Magelock Cannon so much. And keep in mind, those +50 damage are also amplified with the marked stacks on the target, so and everything else. So it's ridiculous. After those tuning kits, there are still warding metals, making your construct and shield units more resistant. You will at this point have some shield units from your captured units, from your subdues, and of course making your Magelock Cannons, or eventually bronze golems, and in the late game your golden golems less yeah, a little bit more magic resistant. Less susceptible, especially to lightning damage, is really, really nice. So this warded it's really nice. After that, you want to research the Great Bombard. The Great Bombard is a really, really nice siege project, and yeah, you can see it here. It says 12 range attack, guaranteed thunder defense, 30 damage, only a cooldown of 1. This is a really nice siege project if you can afford it. And since we are playing Materium, eventually you will get cheaper siege projects, and it's really nice for your battles. And eventually you won't build this immediately, and you can keep this on the shelf for a while. You can research your Ironclad unit. By the time you'll be able to build this unit, you will also be able to build your gold golems, and then you first of all want to build your gold golems. And to be honest, your Magelock Cannons with the tuning kits will keep up in damage a long time. So don't research those Ironclads too fast. It's definitely a nice unit as a one-off in a late game army, but if you don't play with them, nothing is lost. The destabilizing mana core, I don't really like its delay. It's too easily played around, so I usually don't research this. The pinning barrage, you could make an argument to research it, but there are other researches you want first from this tome, and by the time you get to the pinning barrage, you're already into your into your next tome, your first tier 4 tome, and there you will have a spell that essentially fills the same slot that you want to cast instead of this one. So the pinning barrage, in theory, it's a nice spell, but it comes with our build path too late into the game, and then we will have other better options. Speaking of, our next tome will be the Tome of Calamity. This one really synergizes and shines with our whole build. Normally, when you research a new tome, you will get one research round just of researches of this tome, and I'm not sure if it's guaranteed, but I get accursed projectiles and accursed armors in my first rotation a lot. You really do want to have both of those enchantments on all of your on your units. Prioritizing the accursed projectiles, it gives you bonus damage and the chance to apply Ghost Fire. And as you can see, this goes onto your Magelock Cannons as well as on your Overseers, which you will have a lot of, and eventual Skirmisher units, and on your White Witches if there are any left at this point in the game as well. So definitely prioritize the accursed projectiles. This is a really strong unit enchantment. And I spoke about both of them being available in the first rotation. If you get lucky, if it's not guaranteed and you get lucky and get to choose both of them, definitely at this point into the game, mana lock the accursed armors. Research the accursed projectiles first and mana lock the accursed armors, so you can research it guaranteed afterwards. Then from this tome you really want the Comet of Calamity. This is the reason we did not pick up Pinning Barrage. The Pinning Barrage, I believe, is 85 mana and 35 combat casting points, so it's negligible in the cost difference. This spell, however, has a few advantages over the Pinning Barrage. First of all, this one does more damage, flat out. It has a chance of freezing units, which is really nice, and it applies guaranteed 2 stacks of Ghost Fire. So this is just a better spell. And in addition to this, it has the damage and debuff spell. Your Pinning Barrage would have had those damage and debuff spell tags. Your Pinning Barrage would have had those tags as well. But this spell is a Shadow Affinity damage and debuff spell. And with this build, I really like to... there are essentially 2 paths. You can go with Comet of Calamity and build your Shadow Amplifier Matrix. Because this is a really, really nice Shadow Amplifier lens, because this makes it deal more damage. That it does with all the damage spells of its type, and this makes it inflict a guaranteed status invulnerability. And as we already talked about, your whole build centers a lot about around negative status effects, especially frozen, immobilized, stuff like that, and the subdue eventually. So this negative status this negative status resistance, this status vulnerability is really, really nice to have guaranteed afflicted by your Comet of Calamity. In the late game, you can make a case, if you have enough combat casting points, for building your Materium Amplifier lens. And if you want to go that round, you can eventually research the Pinning Barrage from your tier 3 tome and skip the Comet of Calamity, because the Pinning Barrage is a Materium spell. It will utilize this one, and your later spell will then also utilize this one. You can also switch the amplifier lenses in the late game, but the resources in the production are even quite high then, so as you like. However, I like to go with the Comet of Calamity. The Accursed Shrine, most likely you will not build it. You can do it if you really want, but you won't utilize it too much, I guess. If you want to build some Accursed Tricksters, those can be really nice. Definitely keep in mind that those are buffable tier 4 mage units, but eventually you will get your racial tier in the late game if you want to go that route. We will have, we are already in the late game, but in the super late game we will have our own racial tier 4 battle mages, so don't sweat it too much. If someone is ignoring building Spelljammers, or if someone, maybe your playgroup banned Spelljammers in multiplayer, you can ruin someone's day with this Desecrate Land. This is essentially meant to be able to ruin your own provinces for the Accursed Shrine. Ruining your own provinces, because you cannot pillage your own provinces with your troops. But that doesn't mean you can't use this one on your enemies as well. So if your enemy neglected their Spelljammers, or you play without Spelljammers and have not banned the spell for it, just send an observer unit to your favorite enemy and annoy them with this world map spell over and over. Kill all their special province improvements, get gold for it. It will slow them down and maybe make them think twice about the whole Spelljammer situation, at least the building one. This brings us to our second tier for our tome, which is Tome of the Golden Realm, and you already know the pattern. Really, really, really nice province improvement, but it's also needed to build those to pay for your gold golems and your army upkeep. And then you want to research the gold touched just for your heroes, and the really nice economy it gives you at this point. This can be around, let's say, 60, 70 gold at this point in the game. So quite nice. Maybe a little bit more if you have a 5th city. This can easily go up to maybe 80 gold. This is really, really nice. And the resistance definitely helps. And then, of course, we all know him. We all love him. The Golden Golem as our main late game frontline unit. Most builds you will do, they lose a little bit of their original identity. You still keep at this point your Magelock Cannon, so possible because you have to keep in mind what army you can afford at this point in the game. So your late game stack will maybe look like 1 hero unit, 2 gold golems, 2 Magelock Cannons, and 1 overseer. If you have a melee hero in this stack and your gold economy isn't where it should be or where you want it to be, you can go with a hero unit, 1 gold golem, 2 overseers, 2 Magelock Cannons. But even in the late game, you don't want to go full stack with those, since your range, you want to support those golden golems with some ranged units. Eventually you will get more and more of them because they are really, really strong and annoying for your enemy to deal with, but definitely support them with some, definitely support them And keep in mind, this is also a construct. So I did not try this myself, but this strike gold, which is in a huge AoE on gilded units, if you overcharge a golden golem, this will do 100 physical damage, if I'm not mistaken. So just saying. And that's basically it. And then we go for our capstone tome. Yeah, you can tell I already recorded this long video. The Tome of the Creator. You have a really good synergy with your shapers, with your whole unit roster. Given your golden golems, natural regeneration, the lightning resistance is insane. You will have a lot of elementals left, either your own snow elementals or elementals you subdued along the way, the friends you made along the way. And your Magelock Cannons also are constructs, so overall, Shaper's Touch, definitely the first research of this tome, the most important one. This is insane. Yeah, go for it, have fun. And then you can choose between two spells, the Tectonic Shatter and the Titan of the Earth. With the Amplifier Lens, the Materium Amplifier Lens we talked about earlier, I definitely prefer the Tectonic Shatter. It's ridiculous if you can pay for it. 200 mana for one cast is a lot, even in late game, so keep in mind your eco. And the 65 casting points can also be hard to come by. We will play a Wizard King. We will talk about that soon. But even though we play this and we have the Shadow for True Death Magic, 65 combat casting points is enough so that if you spam it, you can run out of casting points, but let's face it, if you spam this spell, you should winning fights. So if you're not that much into the Comet of Calamity, I really like the Comet of Calamity, especially because of the lower cost. I can spam it a lot earlier and continue doing so in multiple fights. But if you're going for one big fight, maybe in a multiplayer game, and your multiplayer your lobby allows Tectonic Shatter or does not limit its cast, just cast this spell over and over with the Materium Amplifier Lens. The all enemies tag is too strong to ignore, and the effects are just insane. So yeah, this is the way to go. And I already talked a lot about this Tectonic Shatter. Call the Titan of the Earth is it has the same cost, 200 mana, 65 casting points. So in my opinion, it's just not as slot efficient. Basically, all the time I would cast this one. I'd rather cast the Tectonic Shatter, especially since your guaranteed cancellation of defense mode and retaliation attack, by the way, attached to a spell unlocked in a tier 5 tome, is already there for you with your Magelock Cannons. So those defense mode and retaliation cancelling purposes this spell may have, you already have this in your kit. This is basically your build. You will be strong with your constructs in the late game. You will have the draft for it. You will have a lot of special province improvements to give you gold for it. This would be a great time to talk about maybe especially your capital city. In my capital city, I like to go for a merchant's guild. It kind of depends on the starting resource nodes, but eventually you will want most of your cities throughout the game having scholar skills and rushing those scholar skills. But to keep up with the demand of gold and mana, but especially gold for your armies, you will need within your first 3 cities, I think, at least 1 merchant's guild. And by the point I have 5 cities, if I go for 5 cities, I will want eventually to have 2 merchants guild in my empire. Later on, you will, of course, switch your scholars guild to other guilds, like the mage guild and stuff like that, to have better fights, better armies. But all this to say, I really like to go for a merchants guild in my capital city. And if you rush your other early knowledge buildings, it's not that bad to not have a scholar's guild in your capital. you will hopefully plop down or migrate your second and third city for scholar skills fast enough. It's not a big deal. I play like this a lot, basically all the time, skipping the scholar skill on my capital, so don't sweat it. It's okay. You'll be fine, and you will really be liking the gold. And with going for the Merchant's Guild and a lot of mines on the research on the nodes, you will get a lot of possibilities. You create adjacencies for your Reaver Manufactorum and your War Foundry, therefore getting the draft to even build your Golden Golems. The Golden Golems, I believe, they take 400 draft. Is it in this? Can we see this? Yeah, I believe this is 400 draft. So this will take a while to recruit, and you don't want to be sitting there and taking 10 turns for a gold golem to recruit. They already cost a lot of gold, and buy rushing them won't help you. So if you buy rush them, you essentially pay, what, 800 gold for a golden golem? That's really a lot. Okay. And one extra tome, if you find yourself going the extra mile, usually, I always forget, the new tome of Geomancy, just because you have no major race transformation. So after your tier 5 tome, if you go the extra mile, go with the Tome of Geomancy. There are, of course, other options as always in this game, but the Tome of Geomancy gives you this major race transformation for all your racial units, which means your heroes now get natural regeneration. And extra damage if you have damage-oriented heroes. So this is really nice, especially for keeping your heroes alive with the natural regeneration. And because this, of course, synergizes with the Shaper's Touch, which specifically works on elementals and constructs. So so the same thing that gave your golden golems the regen gives it here. And you get, if you want to play with them, the Geomancer. Here's a nice option for late game damage dealing. If you don't want to overcharge in the late game, you can maybe in your late game stacks completely ignore your support unit, just have golden golems and Geomancers and go with pure damage. Yeah, it's really nice. There are, of course, other options, but I like to go with this one as to round out our build, so to speak, because let's face it, you should be finishing games by this point, and this is just a little bit extra. Yeah, that's it for our tomes. We now talked about our whole tome path. We remember we started with the Tome of Cryomancy, which brings us to our ruler choice. In principle, you can do a lot of different ruler types, as you know. We will go for this build with the Wizard King. I really like it. A lot of people think it's one of the weaker ones, and again, it is about a game of opportunity cost. That this doesn't mean the Wizard King is weak in itself. In fact, I think it is quite powerful if used correctly. But for a simpler, straightforward playstyle, and for raw stats, of course, other rulers are really, really strong. Dragon for early game clearing, the Eldritch Sovereign, as a mage it clears really good and it has really nice spells in the late game. And the Giant Kings, of course, the item generation plus its early clear, it's really, really strong. If you like, you can play the build with these ones, but I really would recommend trying the Wizard King one, since spellcasting in this build it really complements your roster and your playstyle a lot. So spellcasting in combat is a big part of the Reaver gameplay, at least with this build. So bear with me. The Wizard King gives you all your conduits, give you extra mana. This is like the great builders with the extra gold for quarries. It's whatever. It's nice to have. You definitely you like the 2 mana, having it versus not having it, but it's not the point. The combat casting spells, however, and the world map casting spells are really, really, really good. World map casting is quite important in the early game to keep up with your unit enchantments, summoning things like your elementals. And later on, especially in the mid-game, you will have a lot of unit enchantments you want to put on your units as fast as possible, as well as cast Marching Winter on all of your cities and casting your race transformations. So world map casting points are really, really important, and the Wizard King is a good way to get them. You will also get more of those casting points with your Wizard Governor. Earlier, in the earlier stages of the game, you got casting points for leveling up your Wizard King. Now it is tied to the Wizard Governor, and they are essentially the first one is. The first and the third one are the most important ones. All special province improvements grant you +5 mana in your capital city. This is really, really nice in the early game. There are often situations and turns in the early and mid game where you will be either -10 or +10 mana, and this can make all the difference between being able to cast 1 or 2 spells in a battle, or not being able to pay for your units and needing to disband a high-level elemental or stuff like that. And then, of course, the 2 knowledge per population is really, really nice, and it pays to unlock this as fast as possible, which we talk about when we talk about our ruler's ambition. The most important thing about the Wizard King, and one of the and maybe the main point where the power of this ruler type is budgeted, is the channeling ritual, which allows you to start to cast 1 extra spell in this turn of combat. This got even more unique, this patch, with the rework on the racial tier 3 mage of the Mystic School of Potential. Before, a potential tier 3 battle mage could had this ability, so it wasn't as unique as you could maybe vassalize a Mystic Potential city, get battle mage with this, or just play Mystic Potential and have this. And it really made this channeling ritual more unique by removing it from a simple unit and only having the Wizard King left with this ability. And this ability is really, really powerful, especially since you can enhance it throughout the game, as we will talk about later, or soon. For now, we will just pick the Wizard King and talk about his class and his items. In this build, we have to identify what our Reaver build wants to do and lacks of, and where we have to fill some holes in our build and stuff like that. We already talked about our damage options, our ranged damage options being there, and we already have some really nice ranged units we want to play, either, if you really want to go, then the tier 2 Magelock, but essentially with this build, the White Witch and the Overseer both are ranged, and then we want to go for our cannons, which also are ranged. So you see the pattern of the Reaver culture needing some frontline. We talked about it a little bit with the Bronze Golem, and therefore, I really, really like, and it synergizes quite well for with the Wizard King, we will talk about that later, the Defender class for your Wizard King. As a Defender, you will and can go into the front line and be the front line, especially in the early rounds for your army. So your Overseer and White Witches don't die as fast. So this is really, really nice. And the Wizard King does have an upgrade to his channeling ritual, which I would really, really recommend picking all the time with every build you play with a Wizard King. And this upgrade for the channeling ritual puts you into defense mode. And the Defender, besides being a really, really nice frontline tanky unit, utilizes the defense mode really well. So there's a good amount of synergy which you can use. So the Defender class is really nice. Your ruler will start with a spider mount if you pick the right loadout. So just don't pick a spear for it, even though in the late game or in the mid game, you will want to put a spear on your defender, just because the spear gives you the charge resistance. So your defender hero isn't just knocked out by any tier 1 shock unit out of his defense mode. So in the mid game, you definitely want to give him or craft him a spear. But in the early rounds, the spider mount in the front line is really important for the AoE damage, the immobilize. We already talked about this. And you can basically pick any melee node out you want. Of course, the Captain's Axe and Shield, this one has a lot of damage, 14 damage on hit, with the chance to apply bleed is really, really nice. However, I really, really liked the Lasher's Sword and Shield, because with this, you will get the, let me get it, the Umbral Sword, and the Umbral Sword has this innate pull ability, which your ruler will start from turn 1 you see, you do a lot less damage, but it's a defender, you won't do as much damage anyway. This pull ability can essentially get squishy units to you. It can protect your backline eventually, and I did not test this myself in auto battles, and I regret not doing it now. But this constricted condition essentially is an immobilize. So in theory, this pull and consecutive constricted should allow you to subdue the pulled unit. So it's another source, a 90% chance source right from the get-go to start subduing those units and get your Pokemons rolling, I guess. Yeah. So I play with this Lasher's Sword and Shield, and of course then you switch to a spear later on. Which brings us, then of course you do all your visuals as you like. I really like those goblins, and seeing those goblins on the spider mounts will be really nice. But the Reaver culture, just in general, the whole culture looks so damn cool. Yeah, it's nice to get to play them. Do whatever you like. And let's talk about the ruler ambition. The ruler ambition is quite important. I would recommend going with the Imperialist. The Imperialist is nice because it synergizes with your playstyle. You want to be fighting your free cities. We already talked about migrating our first free city as fast as possible. And maybe it is important to note that even if you are unlucky and your starting free city is tier 1 and doesn't have any walls, attacking it with your ruler still counts as a siege battle. So if you conquer your first free city, even though it has no walls, with your ruler you will still get the major ambition. And for the early game, this siege master can shave off a turn from besieging a city. So this is quite nice. You can siege down 30. You can siege down cities with 30 fortification health in 2 turns. This is really, really good. Saving a turn or 2 over multiple cities. And you get quite a lot of renown for winning battles against free cities. Keep in mind that if you conquer the free city and migrate it to you, the migration will take a few turns. And if the free city has already claimed some resource nodes with its own armies, in general you should do this for experience, but with this Imperialist tech ambition especially, after you conquered the free city or before, just whatever fits to the situation on the map, kill the armies on the resource nodes. They will just vanish after you migrated the city, but whilst you are in the process of migrating the city, they will be still there, and every one of them will give you this sweet renown. And as we talked about earlier, you really want to go to your third tier of governance, and eventually your fourth tier, just because the mana, okay, it's nice, but the 5 casting points are maybe more important than 10% mana in your capital, but yeah, potato. Yeah, Imperialist. If you really want to go with another, if you don't want to go Imperialist, that's perfectly fine. I think that Instructor is another really nice one. You maybe won't finish this as fast as with other strategies, depending on how many of your mercenaries die in the early game, because your summon has the evolve tech, and you will want to prioritize capturing with your war spoils units that have evolve. A lot of your tier 1 units in the early game won't get to legendary as fast, because as soon as they get legendary, they immediately evolve into a higher tier unit and are soldier again. And so evolve units are not as so good to fulfill your major ambition, but if you keep your mercenaries alive, getting 5 legendary units in a reasonable time isn't as hard. And I believe the trainer in the late game is definitely one of the maybe strongest payoffs in the game, especially now since the developers reworked a lot of the +1 recruitments. You could, before the rework of the +1 recruitment, you could essentially do builds with recruiting governors where we recruited tier 5 construct units already on legendary rank. This is not longer possible. But this 50% experience is really nice. If you know how to play around it, you will have in the mid game you will have whole armies of legendary tier 3 units just because of this trainer. Essentially, the trainer tag on your second or third or fourth hero are it's really nice to have. I definitely have picked some heroes not for their class but just for this instructor ambition, because having one instructor for late game clearing and just massively boosting the leveling of your late game units, it's really strong. So if you like, go for the instructor. It will finish a little bit slower than the Imperialist, but I believe in the late game it's one of the strongest payoffs. And if you play on a map with a lot of water, of course you can always go privateer. This is maybe the fastest possible to finish your tier 4 governance bonus. But if you don't play on a map with a lot of water or whatever, maybe don't go privateer. The Wizard King governance isn't as important as other ones. And if you really want to do something else, you can go Shepherd, I guess. You have an elemental summon. You will recruit a lot of animal units. Your Slither Hatchling is an animal. Tier 2 spiders or even piglets, all of them are animals, and all of them will evolve. So I guess you could pick Shepherd and have your early evolve units live a little bit longer, but I think it's just, as we already talked about, game of opportunity, not as strong as the other picks we talked about. This concludes our build in the Age of Wonders client. You see our starting affinities. The Materium is quite nice. The Shadow is quite nice. We already talked about utilizing the Shadow one in the early game for the knowledge extraction. This will be our only point of Astral throughout the whole game, but it really doesn't matter as much, because, of course, if you could have in any build you like as much Astral as you want, but having at least 1 point is better than none. The first unlock at 15 points comes online relatively reasonably early, and since for a lot of the especially in the early game, for a lot of the auto resolves, I like to leave mana and spellcasting on. Later on, if you have 1 or 2 White Witches in your armies, you don't have to use your spellcasting as often in auto resolves. But early on, I really like to leave the spellcasting on for your Ice Coffin. And in this transitioning phase, and for your late game spells as well, the discount on casting combat spells is really, really nice. The second point, which usually is the one you want for your early game economy, where you build your research structures faster, it's 40 points, I believe. So round 41, you can unlock it in this build. Usually at this point, I have most of my research infrastructure already built. You at least you should have. And if you find yourself picking up with this build, the 40 point one, maybe look at how you play your early game. If you're fishing in late game for some specific tech and don't have a lot of mana going around, you can go with this technology just for the cheaper mana shuffle. And by the point the world map casting really by the point you really need a lot of world map casting points, you get to the 60 points, point 60 in the Astral tree, where you get your 20 casting points world map in combat on round 61 possible unlock, and this is at least you get it for the late game, and this is where you really, really want it, and your wizard governor carries you until there. So maybe let's switch to our summary and maybe a few tips and tricks and the build on your ruler. Let's switch over to our browser and our build maker. I have here the Wizard King and the Defender class as we want to play, and I want to talk a little bit about his the most important skills and maybe or how you skill your Wizard King in the early game. You start on level 1 with this overchannel ability, as we already talked about. Yeah, here in the browser, the OBS lags a little bit more. I'm sorry for that, but we have to make do. And then pretty much always when playing a Wizard King, you want to go for this left one, the defensive channeling. And this is solely because the cooldown of this one goes down to 1 turn. Previously, it was 2 turns, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, cooldown 2 turns, which means every 3rd turn you can cast 2 spells. Now you can cast 2 spells every other turn. And this is quite important and a huge part of the power budget of the Wizard King. And maybe if you don't look at it too closely, a little bit misleading, because the other one is called Quickening Ritual. But this just means that you can use the Channeling Ritual as a free action, but the cooldown still remains at 2 turns. And the free action, it really isn't that important. Even if you're not a defender, just put your Wizard King in the backline into defense mode, so it doesn't die. And just cast another combat spell and your job is done. If you play I usually play Wizard King Ritualist. If you play your Ritualist, you don't need to cast a spell every turn, or use an ability rather every turn. So you have a nice cycle of of defensive ritual and your heals as a Ritualist. And here as a defender, you really use the defense mode quite nicely on your Wizard King. So this is an easy pickup. And yeah, so definitely pick this, simply because the cooldown one is so important, especially if we look at the upgrades for our channeling ritual. Here in the tier 2, you have the choice between Evoker's Ritual, which overcharges all spells cast in the turn with your channeling ritual. This is potentially 2 spells, because you can overchannel ritual and then cast your first and second spell. You don't have to cast a spell and then cast channeling ritual. You can just at the start of the turn put your ruler where you want him to be with some movement, put him into defense mode with your defensive channeling, and then cast your spells and get the benefit of the overcharge on both of the spells. In the late game, I would highly recommend going for the Evoker's Ritual. In the early game, you can go for the Enchanter's Ritual. And maybe your build could be if you have no other plans, go for the Enchanter's Ritual early game, and then just use in the late game your free skill point reset to switch over to the Enchanter, to the Evoker. Maybe for those who don't know, let's talk about what the overcharged spell does, because I believe not everyone is aware. Maybe some of you did not play Mystics, and when I hear people talk about how weak, quote-unquote, Wizard Kings are, I don't know if they do not really take this into consideration, or if they still think the spells the Wizard King is weak. But this is basically what overcharging your spells does. And if you played Mystic Potential, you're quite aware of this, but maybe you just use it to expunge your dissonance decks. But you can trigger this every other turn with your Wizard King on 2 spells. And as we already talked about, in the early game we will use a lot of buff spells, which gives us a lot of bolstered resistance. Your Anti-Magic Tincture is a buff spell, gives you bolstered resistance. Your Command Defend and Command Reposition from Tome of the Constructs are both buff spells, able to being applied to your whole army if you position correctly, which will then, with the Wizard King, give you +2 bolstered resistance. And if you want to cast both of them, you will have +4 bolstered resistance in 1 turn. So definitely not sleep on it. In this spell, we don't. In this build, we don't have any combat enchantments, if I'm not mistaken. But for other builds and using the Wizard King, look at this. Combat enchantments that are overcharged allow another spell to be cast this turn. So if you have a combat enchantment, or maybe multiple combat enchantments in your build, you can, in the turns you want to cast your combat enchantment, you can basically cast 3 spells a turn, just so you know. And now we come to the real nice thing. The Evokers Ritual upgrade applies to our Tectonic Shatter and to our Comet of Calamity, and maybe, if you want to go that route, your Pinning Barrage, because all 3 of them have the damage spell and debuff spell tag. So all 3 of them will do 25% more damage in the turns you cast them, and debuff in addition to all the other things they already do, your enemies with 2 sundered resistance. So yeah, that's basically the raw power of the Wizard King for you, as long as you have enough mana. This is quite nice. And of course, you have to keep in mind combat casting points. But since we play 5 and later 6 Shadow Affinity with this build, you will get to your true death magic in the Shadow Affinity tree reasonably fast, and then get the ball rolling. And in the early game, your spells do not cost as much, so you can multiple cast there anyway. Yeah. Going back to our defender class. So now we talked about the Wizard King. We talked about the channeling ritual in detail. I want to go over the first levels of your build. Those are quite important, so you don't get run over, especially with no hero resurgence and stuff like that, and to utilize your defender to the utmost. I will talk about the skill points level 1 to 5. Level 1 you can't choose. You will start with the channeling ritual, so I will talk to basically your skill point choices 2 to 5. And then about your level 8 choice, one of your level 8 choices. Immediately after the first level up, after leveling up to leveling 2 and getting your first skill point, I like to get this this one, the Attuned Godier. It gives your ruler strengthened and regeneration every time a spell is cast. I already mentioned I like to leave the spell casting on in the early game. I believe it is quite needed to cast your Ice Coffin to win your battles. So definitely budget your mana that way, that you can leave your spells on for the early battles. And then the strengthened, it's nice. You definitely take it on your ruler, but it's a defender. It will not do as much damage. You really want this +1 stack of regeneration, since it will keep your defender in the front line alive, as well as freeing your overseer up to heal other units, and therefore not lose as much units in the auto resolves. This one, level 1, or level 2 with your first skill point, definitely the way to go for me. Level 3 with your second skill point, definitely go for the taunt. It's a free action, 90%. We already talked about it. 90% in the early game is really, really nice. It hits a lot of the times. Free action on range, on a low cooldown. This will just help to keep aggro on your Wizard King and keep your other units alive. The worst thing that can happen to you is that your Overseer in the early game dies, because then your whole strategy falls apart and you can basically restart the game because your second Overseer will not come for some time. So your Overseer dying is definitely the worst thing that could happen. If your Overseer dies in a battle, definitely consider using a manual battle to save him. So if you play multiplayer and you allow one manual battle per round per player, definitely if your Overseer dies because you messed up with not healing him on the world map or stuff like that, definitely consider retrying the battle early in the game. Yeah, this is level 3. When hitting level 4, you will get 2 skill points because you will get this this affinity skill. Nice byproduct of our Hermit Kingdom. 1 point is for the initiate affinity skills. 1 point in an affinity is good enough. This means, especially in the early game, we get to go with the Astral dedication, and this lets us our whole army ignore 2 status resistance, and as you can imagine, on all our web abilities, our subdues and our freezing blasts on the white witches, this is really quite powerful. You really like it. On level 4 you get you get 2 points, and by this point into the game, I really like to go immediately into the defensive ritual, as well as the combination with this skill. I don't know the names because I don't play defender as much. With this shield bearer, because now you have your defensive ritual, which will put you in defense mode, and this will give you defense, will give you and all adjacent unit more defense, which in the early game is more important than resistance. So you pick it up 1 point earlier than the next thing on our list. On level 5, you will pick up this warding aura for +2 resistance. Your frontline will be really tanky with this defender type Wizard King, and you will be able to keep most of your units alive, hopefully, in all the auto resolves. And after those early skill points, now your hero is your ruler is level 5. Your ruler will level up really fast because at first it's your only hero. He will be present at all of your fights. Level 5, you will reach it quite fast. So just pick those 5 skills we talked about and then go however you like. I would recommend going down the middle of the defender tree just because it gives you the most tankiness. You really just want to keep your ruler alive, since when he dies you are not allowed to cast any more spells in combat. So picking something more damage orientated on your frontline ruler can be quite difficult. Warriors are another discussion. It's a completely other class. But on a defender, I would go with all the tanky stuff in the middle of the tree. Definitely do not go with warding bond. You don't want your ruler taking any more damage than it already does, because you want to keep him alive. And then you can go for the max HP. The Grace run is really nice as well, and eventually go to the Rallying Cry. There's a reason why they put this as a capstone. It's really nice. Yeah, just take it. Go the middle route for most effective. Jesus, the lag it's crazy. For the most effective defender. And one more little thing I need to talk about, or I want to talk about, is on level 8, where you get your second affinity skill. You will pick your Adept of Materium and go for your wait for it, immobilizing presence. This will give you the opportunity to inflict guaranteed immobilized on units engaged in melee with you. And since you already picked Tome of Cryomancy and have Frost Witches and stuff like that, a lot of enemy units will already be slowed when reaching melee. So you don't even have to wait one turn to immobilize them. Just you will get to immobilize people ASAP. And again, this is not a chance to immobilize. This is a guaranteed immobilize. So really, really nice. This synergizes insanely well with your subdues. Yeah, you can see a lot of the build centers around of getting more and more opportunities to use the subdue of your overseer. I believe a lot of weaknesses stem from builds that don't create those opportunities enough. So you don't have the option after an auto resolve to recruit your units, and maybe don't have the option to spend your war spoils and therefore clear too slow. And or the few recruits you get, you will be forced to take units you don't really want to take. So take skeletons or spirit hawks or stuff like that. That doesn't mean that you never want to take them, but essentially if you can get other ones, okay. And this build creates enough opportunities for subdues that you can afford to not pick the worst picks and wait for another fight and eventually get a good capture, a good subdue. That's why it's important to look for this many avenues to enable your subdue ability. Okay, let me just close this window, maybe reduce the lag a little bit. This is our final build. Let's have a look at it. We talked about the Wizard King, the Defender class, our starting tome. We talked about our form traits. Culture was a given. Yeah, here you have an overview over the whole build in its entire glory. I'm quite confident in it being viable and being playable. And to be honest, I really enjoyed it. Playing with the Reaver culture isn't something you get to do all the time, especially feeling like it was able to keep up with the tempo of other cultures I played and other builds I played. So yeah, definitely give it a try. I would end the video on maybe some tips and some more tips and tricks, a little bit maybe that I couldn't fit in the rest of the video. Yeah, so let's go over them as fast as possible. Some final tips I prepared for you is, first of all, a general tip. You should always keep this in mind with every build, every culture. It's just one of the core game mechanics. At least while fighting one enemy army stack. So this means when you are clearing the map or fighting Ancient Wonders, for example. The experience gained from the enemy units killed will be split most efficiently as of the recent patch, over a full stack, a full army stack, 6 units. If you bring only 5 units, you will waste experience, overall experience. So in general, you want to bring for most of your combats 6 units, nothing more, nothing less. So the 6 units you want to bring, there you have to consider it. Of course, if you are clearing with multiple heroes in a stack, definitely bring all your heroes to every fight. So if you prepare to siege someone or fight a greater battle and have 3 heroes in a place, which normally you don't only have in the late game, because otherwise you will use your different heroes to make another stack and clear the map from 2 or even 3 stacks. If you have 2 or even 3 heroes in the same army wandering around in the same area, definitely bring all of the heroes to all of the fights. Hero experience is the most important experience in the game, and every single other unit should be valued less than your hero for experience than your heroes, and maybe in general. And yeah, this is tip number 1. Always bring 6 units, always bring all your heroes. In the early game, you won't start with any extra units, and it is important to do not start a vicious cycle of units dying in early game combat, then going with an underpowered army into the next fight, the next unit dying, and slowing down your early game inevitably the whole way through. So to do this, usually I pick an easy fight near my capital. There should be on normal word threat one or two easy fights you can do with your 4 starting units. I will immediately queue up a mercenary unit and most of the time buy rush the mercenary on turn 2 when moving my whole army stack away from my capital. If you do not have any easy fights near your capital, consider buy rushing a mercenary turn 1. Because it is very important that you minimize your units dying, especially in the early game. So if you buy rush your first mercenary, you don't do it too often, but if you buy rush your first mercenary and then don't lose any units in the fight, it is definitely worth it. The third tip I have for you is to get a ritualist as your second hero if you can. Of course, if you have a very juicy choice for maybe a warrior with trainer, warrior with scholars, governor, or stuff like that, consider something else. But in general, I would advise you to get a ritualist as your second hero. This is one of the drawbacks of not starting with your ruler as a ritualist. You need to pick up a ritualist as fast as possible because basically the ritualist class is so good. To be competitive, you need a high level ritualist in the late game. If you fight any meaningful fights in the late game to keep up with everybody else, you just need a high level ritualist. There's no way around it. So getting your ritualist going as fast as possible and getting it leveling up is definitely a priority. So if possible, if it's not a complete shit constellation of ambitions and governing bonuses, then go with a ritualist. The fourth tip will be to build your second overseer as fast as possible. I talked earlier about the importance of unlocking the research of the White Witch. This is to give you the option to recruit a White Witch, or if you have your second city really fast and get your second town hall and get your second town hall tier 2 really fast, you can then start recruiting your White Witch. Your White Witches really fast as well, but essentially the first tier 2 unit you want to recruit is a second overseer, just to have the opportunity to have multiple overseers to possibly subdue enemy units. This is really, really important for the pacing of your early to mid game. So definitely don't go with any other unit than the overseer as your first unit build. Try to do your additional scouts while still Town Hall Tier 1, or on harder maps, or in general, it is perfectly fine to just wait for your second city and then build all the scouts you want in your second city, but never build any more scouts in your capitals, but just using it to build units to fight the map with. This brings me to the fifth tip. We already talked about this a little bit, about the army composition, when we talked about our late game composition with the golden golems, or for the experience sharing. In general, the quote-unquote ideal mid-game stack for this build would be 2 overseers. I already talked about this in the tip before. Just so you can recruit more and more units. Eventually, there will be a point where you have such a large army that you won't be wanting to recruit new units with the war spoils just because you cannot afford the upkeep. Keep in mind, this is a very good problem to have. because if you reach this point, you are most likely you most likely will have a big enough army to either wage war against another player, kill Town Hall Tier 3 or Tier 4 free city and migrate it to your own empire, or split up your army into quite early into 2 stacks and start clearing the map with 2 stacks. So yeah, but to reach this point, you really need your 2 overseers in a clearing stack. So a clearing stack of 6 units will be 2 overseers, 2 white witches in the mid game, just because the freezes on them are really nice, and the damage of the freezing blast as well complements it really nice. And then at least 1 hero, of course, if you're not at the clearing with 2 stacks separately stage, or you have an elitist hero, then you just go to your ruler with the secondary hero plus 2 overseers plus 2 white witches, and everything you recruit you just put beside your army and have it as reinforcements. Otherwise, you just go with your strongest recruited or with your strongest captured frontline unit. Maybe you already have a tier 3 elemental, or you have some really nice tier 2 shield unit you recruited, stuff like that. Just some frontline unit, or you want to be a little bit more risky, but still possible, and evolve a unit still. Go with 1 unit for the quote-unquote frontline, or to evolve with your hero, and then again 2 white witches and 2 overseers. This 2 white witches, 2 overseers is really the bread and butter of the build. This is how you will generate all your captures in the mid game, and will be very fast in the military pacing, and thus be able to wage more war. And yeah, that's it. Let me just check my notes if this is the last tip. Yeah, we basically talked about this. If you get a lot of early early game subdues and have a big army with the Reavers, if your game goes to plan, it is quite possible to split your second stack for map clearing faster than other builds, I would say, or at least as fast as other builds. So keep that in mind. Okay. In summary, we talked about the Reaver culture. The Reaver culture gets more reward for waging war than other cultures do. This constantly waging war will then snowball. But if the war train stops, if you don't get your war spoils and your gold from raising cities, then your economy is overall weaker than others and harder to recover from. So don't take too risky fights, because units dying can snowball in the wrong direction for you. And definitely don't stop waging war by yourself. Use the total war society trait, if you like, we mentioned in the early game. Use it as a hint on how to play this faction, this culture. You want to leverage burning down cities for infrastructure at home. Via the gold you get, you burn a city down, you get a huge chunk of gold. You can maybe buy something from the shops, or essentially build with your great builders your very strong province improvements, special province improvements. And you want to leverage your war spoils by recruiting troops directly to the front line, and thus generating mana, draft, and gold, essentially, by recruiting them. Additionally, the Overseer unit, your racial unit with its Subdue ability, is the centerpiece of your playstyle and your identity as a culture. And leveraging the Subdue ability correctly will heavily influence the outcome of your game. In the late game, we already saw, we have really powerful constructs going on, and can definitely keep up with other builds. Yeah, that's it. The video has gotten a longer than I expected, so to speak. I hope you learned something today and have a lot of fun playing this build at home. If you have any suggestions for or requests for other builds you'd like to see or other Age of Wonders 4 related topics, you can leave me a comment, and if I find the time to do another video, I will do it. Otherwise, thank you for listening, and bye bye.